The Cardinals lose to the Cubs on Saturday. Was Oli Marmol too aggressive in his bullpen management, taking Andre Pallante out of the game when he did? We'll talk about that and other aspects of the contest coming up on B-Schaeff Daily. What's going on, everyone, and welcome into this edition of B-Schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer here with you late Saturday evening, June 15th, 2024. I would have got started recording this a little bit earlier, but I was debating people on Twitter. Not even really debating. You know, that For You page now, it's a hot mess of things unrelated to sports for me because I just kind of scroll through and you see what you see, and I can't help but just throw my 2 cents in on some of these topics. Apparently, the United Kingdom is to be blasted, according to the Daily Mirror, by 48-hour, 26 degrees Celsius heat wave, with 5 cities in England marking as the hottest. I'm like, okay, 26 degrees Celsius. I know they do temperature the wrong way. Let's see what that equates to in America temp. 78.8 degrees. And they're freaking out about the heat wave. So I was getting in the mix on that a little bit, so that's why I was delaying getting to start recording today. But we'll talk more Cardinals baseball than we do Europe weather for the most part. People said, yeah, but it's hot inside. We don't have air conditioning. I said, well, go outside. It's 79 degrees. It's really nice out. It's lovely, in fact. Anyway, it's like mid-90s here. Nobody's complaining. Well, yeah, they are, but that's what we do here in the Midwest. Welcome into the show. We're talking about a Cardinals loss today, of course, 5-1 to the Cubs. As Shota Imanaga, yeah, he's pretty good. Guess the Cardinals should have signed that guy. And I know that, it probably wasn't even really on the radar by the time it came about, because when Imanaga signed with the Cubs, it was really kind of late in the process, as I recall it. 4-year, $53 million deal. He signed it in January. I'm seeing a news story from January 11th. And as we know, the Cardinals had signed 3 starters by basically Thanksgiving. Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson coming in the first wave, and then they landed Sonny Gray shortly thereafter. And John Mozeliak had said, hey, we're getting 3 starters. They got 3 starters. And so I think the Cardinals were just out of that tier of the market, but I wish they wouldn't have been, right? It would have been really interesting to see them, because we know they scouted Imanaga and they liked him. But the fact that his contract value sort of dropped as time went along, and it's like nobody wanted to sign this guy. Cubs get him for 4 years and $53 million, which was way less than the projections at the time. You know, if you had looked at projections in October, November, I guarantee you that people were thinking more than that for Imanaga. I think at one point people thought $100 million. I never really thought that, but I think you could go back and find podcasts of me saying, I don't know, 5 and 75, 4, even maybe as high as 4 and 80, 85. I don't know. We had no idea what teams were going to want to pay for sort of the number 2 starter coming out of Japan. Obviously, Yamamoto was number 1. But I think this guy might even, I don't know about better. I think Yamamoto, you can take the 5 years of both. And I'm going to probably say that Yamamoto might get him. Health dependent, of course. He's already had some various issues. He left his start today with triceps tightness. But his ERA was, I think he's gotten it to below 3 now. So he's really good too. But Shota Imanaga, something about this guy, he's just, first of all, he's got the it factor, I think. And I'll show you what I mean a little bit. This is irrelevant to anything, but postgame, of course, he uses the interpreter, the Cubs starter Shota Imanaga, the lefty. He's a rookie, technically, because he's in his first big league season, but he's also 30 years old, so he's a veteran of pro baseball. And I guess people thought, oh, he's not very tall. I don't know if he's 5'8", 5'9", what he is. And people made a big deal about that. Well, he doesn't throw as hard as Yamamoto. Well, no, but Yamamoto got a $300 million contract. Shota Imanaga, it's going to be either him or Seth Lugo of the Royals that goes down as the signing of the offseason. And their contracts were similar. Lugo got 3 years, $45 million from the Royals. And even, I'll say, I was not on him. I was not thinking that he was going to be quite as good as he's been for Kansas City. And 34 years old, so he kind of would have been right in the Cardinals' wheelhouse. I wonder if the Cardinals even ever got far enough into having to look to other options to have had an opinion on Seth Lugo, because he would fit the billing, right? Veteran guy, pretty reliable arm, but also hadn't really shown this level as a starter of what he's doing right now for the Royals, leading the AL in innings pitched. He's got a 2.36 ERA. But I just was never really as in on him. But Yamamoto, we just figured was going to be too expensive. And so I really did say, you could go back and look, Imanaga, I was kind of like, this could be a perfect fit for the Cardinals, right? They don't want to break the bank. This guy might come a little cheaper than Yamamoto. Well, little did we know that it was going to be night and day difference. And production-wise, the Cubs are getting their money's worth. And now this guy's going to be terrorizing the Cardinals for, years to come, effectively here in the NL Central rivalry. And he's fun, too. That's what makes it even worse. Here's a post-game snippet that Marquee Sports Network posted. Shota Imanaga on his mindset there in the bottom of the seventh is what he was asked. And you'll hear this through the interpreter.
I was pretty hungry, so I was thinking about what kind of food and nutrition I should take after the game. This is my honest thoughts.
Like, he has no right to be this good at pitching and funny. What's going on? Reporters are asking, what are you thinking in the bottom of the seventh? He's like, I was hungry, saw just kind of what I was going to eat, basically. And then as the interpreter is sharing that information, he adds, this is my honest thoughts. I don't know. That's kind of funny, kind of deadpan humor. I like it. You'd like it a lot better if you were in a Cardinal uniform than a Cub. This guy's going to be a tough nut to crack over the next 4 years and probably beyond that if the Cubs, decide, hey, this is going pretty well. Maybe we keep this guy around a little longer. And look, maybe it was never even going to be an option because some of those guys that come over from Japan, they have maybe an expectation that they want to play in a bigger city. Some guys want to play on the coast, right? That's how the Dodgers, they've got Yamamoto, they've got Ohtani. But Chicago Cubs are always going to have a leg up, I think, in those international bidding wars for guys because they may just have a preference to play in a larger market than St. Louis. But you know what you can do when it's 4 years, 53? You just double the offer. I mean, 4 years, 80, 4 years, 90. I don't know. But at the same time, the Cardinals had basically already gotten the guys that they intended to get. And look, I don't think we should be poo-pooing Kyle Gibson signing. I mean, he's looked fantastic. Lance Lynn, the jury's still kind of out on his consistency because he just hasn't been able to get deep into games, has not been the innings eater that the Cardinals were purported to be looking for. So we'll see. Well, jury's out, like I said. But, man, Imanaga, like imagine Imanaga in that Steven Matz spot right now. Like in a world in which the Cardinals just, and I get it, to build a wit, this would just be unfathomable because they really do insist that, we run a tight ship and, our payroll's based on revenues and et cetera and yada, yada. Just imagine if they were like, the priority is that we want to win. And this Imanaga guy, we scouted him. We already signed the three guys that we got the deals we wanted for all three of them. But this guy's still out there on the market. We were going to offer him, that 4 years, $80 million if this didn't work out with Sonny Gray or whatever, right? Like maybe they had an idea in mind. I guarantee it because they did scout him. So they had to be kicking around the idea in the back rooms of maybe what an offer could look like for this guy until they signed the other three. But then as Imanaga's process goes along and the can gets kicked down the road to the new year, past Christmas, past New Year's, and it's January 11th before he signs, man, if the Cardinals would have just gone, you know what, let's get back into the race on this guy. Let's send him an offer, right? Which there's no sense that that's what happened. Maybe it did. Maybe it did and just didn't get out. But that would have been difference making because then you're talking about Sonny Gray, Imanaga, Kyle Gibson. Bang, there's your 1, 2, 3. Instead, Imanaga's on the other team, your top rival, and he beat your butts today. Cardinals lose it 5-1 as Imanaga goes 7, gives up just 1 run, 4 hits, didn't walk anybody, 6 Ks. He's got a 1.89 ERA for the season. And Cubs have a reliever, Tyson Miller, who shut the Cardinals down for 6 outs. His ERA down to 1.82. And that was all she wrote for the Cardinals in this one. But I want to talk about Andre Pallante and how his outing, I thought, was going pretty well, all things considered. And then the first sign of trouble, which was really not even, I guess I shouldn't say first sign, because there was some couple of spots he had to pitch through early in this game, but showed the ability to get some swing and miss when he had to get out of some of those spots. And one of them came in the fourth, but that was the spot of trouble that I was going to refer to here, as Palante gives up a base runner. He didn't walk anybody in the game, by the way. 3 1/3 is all he went. 5 hits, 2 runs, only one of them earned. But Palante's there in the fourth inning, and the Cardinals had just taken the lead. You get a little bit of just a nice little good old-fashioned rally going on for the Cardinals. Move a guy over, Alec Burleson to third base, and hey, it's a miniature rally anyway. Nolan Arenado sac fly. You get a run in the fourth inning. Small ball. You like it. Cubs outfielders collided on this play, too. They almost didn't make the play. Center fielder Pete Crow Armstrong still held on to it, but Seiya Suzuki got a face full of Pete Crow Armstrong. Anyway, so the Cardinals had the lead. What do we think about this spot where Oli Marmol goes to his bullpen? Because that's really what I want to focus in on. And I didn't do like an intro today like I normally do. Let me know if you like the style of this a little better too. I'm always trying to tweak and improve what I'm doing here. And truth is, I don't know what I'm doing here. But talking Cardinals baseball, that's the given. But sometimes I like to talk about some other stuff. So I joked about Europe, and they're complaining about the weather in the United Kingdom. So I joked about that at the beginning. But instead of saying, hey, subscribe and that good stuff, but please do. I mean, while you're here, hit that subscribe button. We do a daily Cardinals podcast. It's every single day, barring me being out of town or something. I got to figure out what I'm going to do during Birmingham, too. That's next Thursday, or this coming Thursday. And I will be covering that. I'm making the drive down late Wednesday night, so I'm kind of roughing it. I'm going to get there pretty early Thursday morning. But I got to figure out podcast-wise what I'm going to do Thursday night, because I think that's a night game. Anyway, let's talk about Andre Pallante getting pulled out of that situation by Oli Marmol in the fourth inning. After, again, he had shown flashed the strikeout stuff, ended up with 4 out of the 10 outs that he got. And he's in a situation where and Adam Wainwright was on the call for Fox Sports 1 as an analyst, and Jason Benetti, the play-by-play guy, sort of was remarking about, when you were pitching, if Oli had somebody up warming in the bullpen, you had 57 pitches or whatever it was, you wouldn't have liked that very much. And they were like, haha, nope, sure wouldn't have. And I kind of heard that and thought, yeah, okay, whatever. There's somebody warming in the pen, but if this thing goes off the rails, right? That's the only reason that somebody's out there. No, he struck out Ian Happ on a really good pitch, and next thing you know, it's Roycroft into the game. Inning started with a Bellinger base hit, and then the situation devolves into a potential threat, honestly, because of a bit of a confusing play on a stolen base attempt by Cody Bellinger. Cubs had the hit and run on, right-handed batter in the box, Seiya Suzuki, and he's known as more of a pull side hitter. And yet it's Mason Wynn, the shortstop for the Cardinals, that's going to cover second base on the attempted steal by Bellinger. And sure as shooting, Suzuki puts a ground ball right where Mason Wynn would have been standing. So before we get into Oli Marmol's remarks on why take Palante out in that situation in the fourth that we're sort of circling the drain on here, I want to dig in first as to why Mason Wynn, the shortstop with a right-handed batter up, was the guy covering the bag instead of Nolan Gorman, because Jeff Jones did ask Oli Marmol that question post-game in the video you can find on Bally Sports Midwest Twitter page. But we'll play the audio here courtesy of Bally Sports, because there was an explanation from Oli, but when we saw it, it's like, oh my goodness, it's now first and third, nobody out, instead of, honestly, probably a double play ball. And Palante just cruising along. I mean, he got the ground ball. It just so happened that Cubs put on a brilliant hit and run, and Suzuki pulled the ball right into the shortstop spot where Mason Wynn had vacated. So, courtesy of Bally Sports Midwest, here's the question from Jeff Jones and Oli Marmol's answer to it.
With Suzuki at the plate and Bellinger moving, what's the determiner that takes Mason to the bag instead of Gorman there?
What they try to do off Palante, they try to stay inside of it. Righties, if you look at a spray chart, it's everything up the middle to the right side, so you try to hold the ground where the majority of the balls are going to go.
So that's Cardinals manager Oli Marmol answering that question. Basically, their spray charts indicate, and look, they use the crap out of these spray charts. It's how They position the defense, and to the Cardinals' credit, I think they're very good at defensive positioning most of the time. A lot of times a ball will be struck up the middle, and you go, uh-oh, but then there's a guy standing there, and it's not a problem at all when the camera flips on the TV angle. So I think largely the coaching staff has a pretty good handle on these matters. But, man, it's just traditionally you'd have the second baseman, right, taking that spot. And I don't know if that's something that Suzuki can even register in real time. I know there are some hitters who are good enough, and you're able to kind of place the ball. Yadier Molina was notorious for that. There'd be a hole on the right side. Okay, that's where I'm putting it. But to adjust on the fly as the hit and run is on, maybe it's as much of a thing that the Cubs were like, hey, scouting report, they think we're going this way, but we're actually going to pull this ball. Like that's almost like X's and O's in football. That might be a little too far-fetched to believe that Suzuki was watching to go, okay, Mason Wynn's taking off. That's where I'm going to punch this ball here, this grounder. But it works out really brilliantly for the Cubs, and I think a great time, obviously, for them to hit and run because it ended up basically changing the game. And ultimately, the Cubs scored runs later. Ian Happ does what Ian Happ does and hits a home run that really jars this thing loose for the Cubs, so they win it 5-1. But maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe the bullpen plays out differently. Maybe, who knows what happens if the Cardinals are able to keep that lead there in the fourth instead of giving up a couple of runs the way that they did. But that's Oli Marmol's answer for why was Mason Wynn on the move instead of Gorman. The reason I wanted to dive into that before getting more into Palante is because I think Palante got screwed here, personally. His stuff looked really good, and I thought he kind of had that snarl to him that I wanted to see play out a little bit more in this Wrigley environment. You really are able to see what somebody's made of when they have to pitch in this rivalry at Wrigley especially. Nothing on you Cardinals fans at Busch, but the environment's just better at Wrigley in this rivalry. It just is. It's more intimidating. But that's partially the ballpark, right? The fans are right on top of you. We hear players describe that all the time. Brad Thompson has mentioned that that's the way it feels when you're pitching at Wrigley. It's just the nature of the stadium itself. Speaking of which, I can't wait to see what Wrigley Field is going to look like in that regard. Obviously not, quite so many seats at Wrigley Field compared to Wrigley, but same vibe of an older stadium. And that's just going to be surreal to see a ball game, an MLB game, I should say, played in that stadium next week. But it's just one of those cases where I thought Andre Pallante sort of had that look about him where I'm like, he's going to go through some moments in this game, and he's going to deal with some danger. But, man, you could learn a lot about a guy that you really want to see, hey, he's got the makeup to be the number 5 starter for more than just a couple of weeks on this team. I mean, Wrigley Field is a great proving ground for that. And I thought the strikeout of Ian Happ, who obviously kills the Cardinals, I was thinking, okay, Palante, like now you're a double play from getting out of it. We'll see how they position the infield there. That's one thing I don't generally like is the infield in thing that they do. But last night we talked about how it had to be done in Friday night's game because you're up 1-0 late. You haven't scored much all day. Just one swing of the bat got it done. And there's a runner on third. You got to cut that guy down. You just have to. You can't concede that run. So that makes sense to go infield in there. But other times I'm kind of like, okay, maybe save it for not the first inning of the game or the second inning of the game. Might say a little bit too much about what they think of their offense at times. But would they even be wrong? Because the Cardinals ultimately scored just the one run today. But after Palante got Happ, back to the game itself, that was a moment where I looked at it and was thinking, let's see what Palante does here. This is going to be a really interesting spot for him to see if he can navigate out of this. Because, again, it was not that he was getting shelled or throwing wild pitches or anything like that. Base hit, and the second hit was, frankly, it was a double play ball. Just honestly some poor luck for Palante in that spot. Nothing he really could have done about it. But instead of, at 58 pitches, Oli Marmol having the same thought that I did of, all right, let's see what Palante's got here. We might learn something. His thought was, let's get Chris Roycroft into the game stat with Palante at 59 pitches in the fourth. Interesting. I mean, I was definitely surprised when it happened, and I said as much on Twitter. I tweeted it out, and I was trying to get that tweet fired off, and I think one pitch before it showed on my screen, which I think it was the first pitch that Roycroft threw, the little dribbler that he was unable to handle and complete for the out at first. And then there was a dribbler right after that Pages had to jump on the grenade and fire it quickly to first to even get that out. But by then, 2-1, oh boy. So not only did you have sort of this controversial decision from the manager on the pitching front, it didn't work. Except it kind of did work with the way that Chris Roycroft got 0.9 mile per hour exit velocity. I mean, they were both just dinked right in front of home plate. You couldn't have asked for anything better with that sinker that Chris Roycroft throws. It just, maybe they should have hit it a little harder because that would have been the thing that was better. I trust Mason Wynn's ability to field the grounder more than I do Roycroft. And credit to Pages for making the play that he made. But it all boils down to the question, okay, why? Well, Oli Marmol has the answer. Here's the question you'll hear from Jim Hayes, and Oli's answer courtesy of Bally Sports Midwest.
You kind of got him out a little early, just the thought process.
Yeah, you got the righties coming up. That's what gives him trouble. Roycroft's been really good against righties. He's been on the ground a lot. Horner's on the ground a lot. I'd rather see Roycroft there, but there's an argument for leaving Palante in and continuing to go. But Roycroft's been really good against righties.
He's been really good, and he cut a couple little
balls. Did exactly what he needed to do. I mean, weak ground balls right in front. Couldn't handle one of them, and then we got the second one. But I mean, once that happened, command wasn't there against the lefties. 4 walks there, but overall came in and kept the ball on the ground, which is what we needed at that moment.
Yeah.
So he basically, Chris Roycroft, was brought in to get the ground ball, and he delivered that twice in a row in that 4th inning. Now, things went off the rails for him later on in this ball game. 4 walks, that was a dicey spot for him to be in, and Kyle Leahy eventually comes in and rescues that situation before he himself ran into some trouble in the 7th inning, and that was where John King was unable to rescue him. It was really just the one base hit to Tauchman in the 7th, but then you're planning the lefties coming up, and King had some trouble in this one, and he gave up the 3-run bomb to Ian Happ, which really kind of put this game out of reach in the bottom of the 7th. But you're looking at that spot in the 4th inning going, all right, I get it. Maybe Roycroft better against righties, but Andre Pallante started the game. He's your starting pitcher, and to me, the 4th inning is just too early to be thinking of matchups in that way. It's like, yeah, he's deficient maybe a little bit against right-handers. That is something that you know before you decide he throws the first pitch of the game. Like, he's the starter today. And you're down 2 or 3 guys in your bullpen for sure because of recent usage. I just didn't like the move. I want to be clear about something, though. Me not liking the move does not equal me agreeing with what a lot of Cardinals fans would say, I think, which is that that's the move that lost the Cardinals the game. No, the Cardinals lost the game because they couldn't figure out Shota Imanaga in the same way that they did out in Mesa there a couple days before the season began, and they didn't get anything done offensively. Mason Wynn, Alec Burleson, Arenado, Herrera. Those are your 4 hits. It didn't take me long to rattle it off. Arenado's was the RBI sacrifice, and then he also had a base hit aside from that. Burleson had a double. The other guys were singles. No walks by the offense and 8 strikeouts. They just had a bad day offensively. And if you look at their lineup, yeah, they kind of have a lot of those. Too many days where they don't do quite enough. And Imanaga is a good pitcher that's going to give them fits for a long, long time. I promise you he will. But this is a lineup that you had Pages, 443 OPS, and I agree with him being in there because he's a much better option at catcher than Herrera. I would be starting Pages at least 3 out of every 5 right now. He starts with Michaelis for me. He has to start with Palante. I told you he would 5 days ago. It's a personal catcher situation with Palante, it seems. But Michaelis, same way. Sonny has managed to do okay. Like, he bounced back with Herrera, so I think they'll keep Herrera with Sonny for the time being because they made some good progress in their last outing together. And then you can you take your pick, I guess, with Lance Lynn. But to me, Michaelis, Palante, Gibby could probably go either way. I don't think it makes too much of a difference. But at least a couple of days a week, that's when you're going to see Pages, is with Michaelis and with Palante for now. And Wilson's going to get back as quickly as he can, and then that'll shake things up again too. But before my sidetrack happened on the Cardinal catching situation, I was going over the lineup. Pages 443 OPS, Carlson 490, Donovan's down at the 8-hole 693. Herrera is just, because he got a hit today, still a shade above 700 at 701. Gorman is absolutely going through it. I'd give him a day off or 5. He went 0 for 4, 2 Ks. I think he's had 9 or 10 Ks in his last dozen at bats or something. 733 OPS. I mean, he is streaky. I saw something recently on Twitter that said, actually, he's not as streaky as you think he is. No, he really is. As streaky as you think he is. He's going to go through spells where the people who say, how could you have ever said you would trade him instead of Donovan, can say, like, do their victory lap. And then he'll go through these spells where we could say, see, like, this is part of the experience with Nolan Gorman. If he could just do the other part only and then just be like regular during the parts where he's not going nuclear, then he would be a perennial all-star and MVP candidate. But you get the 3 for 49s to go with the times where he hits 10 homers on a road trip. Like, it's just part of the experience. But that doesn't make him reliable as a middle order bat for this team. Arenado's right on the button at 700 for the OPS. Goldie is at 642. He was 0 for with 2 Ks today. Burleson 1 for 4 today, so he's at 742. Wins at 773. You've got one guy above a 750 OPS in today's lineup, and it's your rookie Mason Wynn, who now they've realized leadoff is probably fine for him. I mean, that's not a competitive contending lineup, and I will understand the injuries are part of it. Nootbaar and Contreras might be the top 2 OPSs when they get back. I know Nootbaar had a pretty slow start after coming off the injured list the first time, but I think he got the OPS up there pretty good. Well, he's at 742 as well, so he'd be tied with Burleson for second behind Mason Wynn. Like, this Cardinal team, man, this offense is just not very good at this point. The players on it, I like. I want to buy in, right, to a number of these guys. But you can't look up and down that lineup collectively and say, oh, yeah, good lineup. Now, in fairness, like, you look on the other side at the Cubs, Seiya Suzuki's at 797, Bellinger's at 771. They've only got 2 guys above a 750 OPS. So I think offense is down across baseball, but the Cubs aren't a great lineup either. And they've got Tauchman at 732. David Bodie came in off the bench. He's 733. Haps is 704. When he plays the Cardinals, he's 7,004 OPS. Like, the Cubs, their lineup is marginally better than the Cardinals, but maybe not even. Like, they got the same thing going on. Yan Gomes is a 420 OPS. Crow Armstrong is at 540. They're at the bottom of their lineup. Dansby Swanson has really taken a step back offensively. So, you know, other teams deal with it too, but you don't want me to sit here and compare the Cardinals lineup to the Cubs. You want me to compare it to the Brewers and the Braves and the Dodgers and the Phillies and say, how can the Cardinals get back to where they once were? You better hope Wilson comes back quick and Nootbaar comes back quick and that Arenado and Goldie figure it out. And really, it's down to just Goldie. 700 OPS is not like this benchmark that we should be measuring Nolan Arenado against, but at least he's at that point compared to where he had been. But Paul Goldschmidt, he can't bat third anymore, but they don't have anybody to replace him. They really don't. When Contreras comes back, it gets a lot simpler because he can bat third. You keep everything else the same at the top. Wynn, Burleson, that's fine. Contreras, when Nootbaar comes back, you can put him in Burleson's spot if you want, and then Burleson can drop down. Honestly, what do you think of this? Let me try to carve up a quick lineup here, and I promise we'll get more into the Palante decision because I got real sidetracked, but that was the main thing I really wanted to get into. And you throw out your comments as to what you thought about it. Like I said, I already basically gave my premise that I didn't like it. I wouldn't have done it, and I think I understand Roycroft being a better fit against the righties coming up, but maybe that's a decision you can make in the 5th or 6th inning not in the fourth inning when that scenario comes up. It's a fourth inning and you got a short bullpen. And Palante didn't do anything to tell you he's about to lose it at 59 pitches. So I didn't like it. But let me go real quick because maybe Nootbaar comes back. I'm skeptical that he's going to be back real quick. Obliques suck, man. They're tough to come back from quickly. And the same that Jordan Wicks, I guess, is going to have to deal with the Cubs. He was the starter yesterday who left, and Hendricks came in. But what about Mason Wynn, and then Burleson or Nootbaar? Take your pick. Contreras 3. The other one, I would say Burleson 4. What about Wynn, Nootbaar, Contreras, Burleson, Arenado 5? Because now you've got 1 through 5, right, left, right, which I know a lot of fans don't care about. I do think there's an advantage when you don't get mowed down by a lefty reliever if you can space guys out. But it's also like, I think it's a nice tiebreaker. You don't have to force it, but it's a nice tiebreaker. But I kind of like, all right, Win Nootbaar, get some on base up at the top. Contreras bat third. He's your best hitter right now. At least he was before the injury. Burleson, maybe not quite the power to be a cleanup man, but I mean, look at the OPS, look at the numbers. He's been better than a lot of the other guys. So you put him 4, Arenado 5, Gorman 6, Goldschmidt 7th, because honestly, that's about where he belongs on the numbers right now. And then you can go Donovan 8th, and maybe Donovan 9th and your catcher 8th, whether it's Herrera, or pardon me, your DH would be who would be 8th, because we had said this is when Wilson comes back. Goldie 7. What are we missing? I guess center fielder. Yeah, I suppose center fielder. Because the only outfielder we said so far was, well, no, we said Nootbaar. So Nootbaar, maybe Burleson's your DH. And so then you got to decide, like, all right, is Carlson playing center or is Nootbaar playing center, which they were reluctant to do. And then Donovan's your left fielder. So you go Carlson 8, Donovan 9, or vice versa. Now that could actually be a pretty solid lineup. Let me know your thoughts on that. Win, Nootbaar, Contreras, Burleson, Arenado, Gorman 6, Goldie 7, Donovan 8, center fielder 9, Ciani, Carlson, and then if you did decide Nootbaar can play center, which I don't think they're going to do. And Carlson, by the way, looked really good defensively today. He was 0 He's hitting now 188. Defensively, he took command of everything that happened coming his way in center. Fine, very good to see. Like, he's capable of it. Just do that. And today was, I mean, they're playing at Wrigley. The wind is swirling. It's ridiculous, tough to, and suddenly he's locked in. Dylan's got to be locked in like that, and he can play center. He can be a center fielder. But if he's not locked in, I wouldn't even put him in right, because there are times where he just looks lost. But the confidence was there today. That's why I say it's mental and confidence for Dylan. It's not that he's a bad player. He has to find the consistency of his game, though. Otherwise, you sort of are what your numbers say you are, and your performance dictates. But anyway, you could go Carlson in the 9 hole with Donovan 8. I mean, 1 through 9, that actually I think has a pretty good look to it, and it puts the reality on the plate of where Paul Goldschmidt is right now. You don't have to bat him third when there are other people to take the spot, but there really aren't right now. I mean, put Herrera up there if you want, I guess, but I would drop Goldie. I'd look for a way to drop Goldie down to 6. You could swap Herrera and Goldie. It's just, it doesn't make a lot of sense because Herrera hasn't been doing a ton, but I think taking better ABs than Goldie, which, you know, I know he had the home run in the previous series, but still, let me know your thoughts on that too, I suppose. But anyway, this Roycroft thing, I understand it. Righty on righty, that's what's coming up in the Cub lineup, but that's the kind of decision you make if it's like the 7th inning. You go, oh yeah, we play the matchups. I don't know if you play the matchups with your starting pitcher at 59 on the pitch count, and you're in the 4th, and he just struck out Ian Happ. That's a little over-eager for me. I think a little bit over-managing, although I think the process is always sound with Oli, and people are going to say, you moron. No, it's not. But I think that there's always a process to it, whether I agree with the process or not. It's not that they're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants. I think this is a process that they were looking to pursue because of a lack of faith in Palante. A, in what he can do against righties, but B, in general. Like, that's a move that tells me, yeah, he still feels like kind of a placeholder for this number 5 starter spot, which may be right. That may be the way that it should be. But really, I mean, outside of the one bad start in Houston, Palante's been pretty good as a starter. Had 2 scoreless outings of 6 innings? And this was 3 1/3 of 1 earned run. And one of the runs not earned because of the Roycroft error. Roycroft gets exactly what you need. You're looking for that soft contact on the ground. He can't make the play to first base. And then things kind of unraveled on him later on when he in total, he walked 4 in this outing. Recorded 4 outs, walked 4. I think he's a local kid to Chicago as well. You know, tough to kind of not have your best outing there in maybe your hometown, but that's just, I think it's kind of something that you might anticipate too with a rookie and say, hey, maybe we really like what he's doing, but maybe this isn't the spot to say, let's really load him up with this leverage opportunity. Clearly wasn't because they didn't think he could throw the pitch. I mean, they believed in it, but they showed more faith in Roycroft than they did in Palante, who was already on the mound looking pretty capable. Again, if he had walked 2 guys and that's how it was first and third, then I feel differently about it, but it wasn't. It was a single and then a single that was actually a double play ball disguised as a single because the scorebook said it was a single. And Bellinger goes first to third to make it a dangerous spot. But it's like, all right, I understand the premise, righty on righty, but you're extending that latitude to Roycroft, the rookie, rather than Palante, the guy that, But it makes sense. I mean, it tracks if you think about the fact that the Cardinals have been so reluctant. They probably won't name Palante the 5th starter, for 5 days from now. They'll probably say, we'll wait and see. Which, by the way, I think that lines up as the Birmingham game because there's no off days between now and then. So you're talking Sunday, Father's Day, which it is now past midnight as I'm recording. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in Miami. Those are the other 4. So Palante would line up for Wrigley Field. But I bet the Cardinals will say, we're not going to announce. We'll wait and see. As though Palante didn't pitch pretty darn well. They should announce it 10 a.m. tomorrow. Not 10 a.m. What's tomorrow? Sunday? Yeah, they're playing at noon. So, 9:30 a.m. tomorrow when Oli, they should say, Palante's taking that next start. Show a little confidence in Palante. Even if you don't believe it, even if you don't think he's any good, pretend you do, would be my advice to the Cardinals because his big league numbers actually say he's pretty good. I know he's got an elevated whip, walks plus hits per innings pitched, but his ERA is sub-4 for his career, more than 200 innings. I mean, he's got a solid arm, and the Cardinals could do a lot worse, I feel like, for the number 5, and they have done. We've seen it. We've watched it play out at times. But they're just, the reluctance to acknowledge Palante almost, I think, is running counter to the Cardinals having what they want here, having him go out with, and look, I think it's not going to faze him. He's going to be as confident as he's going to be regardless. But I think if you're the Cardinals and you're trying to get the most out of a player, pump that guy's tires, make him, give him that confidence. This was a little bit the opposite of that. And look, it's not why the Cardinals lost the game. You're probably railing on Oli Marmol in the comments more than I'm really willing to do here. I didn't agree with the decision, but I also understood the rationale behind it. I just pushed back on it a little bit in that even though Roycroft comes up with the pitch you were looking for, all right, the nerves were clear, right? Like the fielding becomes an issue, which you could have anticipated the ball was going to come to him to have to field it, but that's always in play when you're trying to get the ball on the ground in weak contact. But I just think and it showed too in the walks that he had later that, all right, for as much as he's done a nice job, I don't know that this spot of, you can call it leverage. It wasn't really leverage, but it was a fireman situation because you had men on base, less than 2 outs, and him being the guy brought in to try and put out the plays. But maybe it was like you could have anticipated, Wrigley's a tough spot to have that happen, to be in that spot. And it's coming under some controversy because it's in the 4th inning, and Palante, I get it. There are some starters that they'll give the latitude to make their mistakes and lose the game because of it. Michaelis gets to do it. Lance Lynn certainly gets to do it. And it doesn't come for Palante, and I get it because he's not quite as high on that totem pole, but I would have let Palante through that spot. And look, what was it likely going to be any worse than a couple of runs scoring? Yeah, he could always give up a home run and just totally lose command of the situation, but he hasn't, didn't do that last time out. Had another strong one and looked strong to get today. Didn't look like he was about to be a guy that was going to have a Houston repeat. Houston, we had a problem down there. I think that letting Palante through that would have been a chance to learn a little more about where Palante is and inform decisions going forward about, all right, is that fifth spot his, or are you really aggressively looking? Which you should be looking anyway. You should be looking for a number 2, frankly, to then bump Kyle Gibson to number 3, and that's your 3-man rotation for a wild card series. Sonny, mystery guest, Kyle Gibson. But, I just don't know that they're going to have the appetite to trade for somebody that's a number 2. That's neither here nor there. I just think they could have let Palante go. It's not why they lost. Oli Marmol didn't cost the Cardinals the game with the decision. But I think, too, you're looking at a bullpen that's depleted and you're in the middle of a long stretch. It's going to be not until after Birmingham that you get another off day here. And so you're on that stretch that it would be really nice to have the bullpen be a little more rested. Volunteering to remove your starter after he records only 10 outs when you have that situation and he's not pitching bad, I couldn't be on board with it, because what it leads to is the downstream effect of now in the 7th, which John King may have been that spot in the 7th anyway. That's the lefties coming through. Maybe it would have been Liberatore. I don't know. I don't know how they view hierarchy, Libby versus John King. I prefer Libby personally for the leverage spot, and so I probably would have flipped that, honestly. But I get it. John King's been great, so it's not. ERA was sub 2 before this. Libby, though, has had no runs allowed since going back to the bullpen, I don't think. He's been really, really sharp. So to me, I would have that hierarchy, Liberatore ahead of John King, and JoJo, the top lefty, still out of the pen. Yeah, Libby has not allowed a run since going back into the pen. So I would have, in that spot where the lefties were coming up and King ended up giving up the 3-run homer to Happ, that would have been Libby for me, but that's a little bit nitpicky. Again, not why they lost the game, because the Cardinals scored 1 run. But if you're asking my opinion on it, yes, I think they pulled Palante too early. And for Roycroft, where the thought process was sound, I agree with the premise, but I don't know that you could have anticipated the Wrigley factor of it. Maybe you could have. Maybe I am saying that you could have and said, well, let's let Palante have his Wrigley factor, and if he gets blown up, you kind of file that away as a data point. I don't really need to know yet whether Chris Roycroft can do that. Let's wait till the 7th inning when he's supposed to be in the game, or the 6th inning when you're having a spot for him to pitch. I just thought the 4th was way too early. Understood the premise. I don't think you operate that way personally when it comes to the 4th inning. But look, they wait 5 days to say Palante's the starter. That circus went around a couple times on the merry-go-round before they were like, all right, yeah, he's number 5 for now. So that's just kind of the way it's been. Par for the course for how they have handled Palante. I just don't happen to agree with it. It's not the end of the world, though. I can complain about something, and it can be in context. This is not me like a 9 out of 10 anger scale criticism. This is like a 3 out of 10. Where I'm like, yeah, I would have done it differently, but you can also see that the exact result they were hoping to get, soft, weak contact on the ground with that sinker from Roycroft, happened, and then it just didn't pan out. I'd like to think Palante keeps guys on the ground, though, too, and might have been able to pull it off. So the whole thing about Palante, liking him in the rotation more than as a reliever, is like he can clean up his messes and you give him that latitude. Well, they didn't today, and I'd be a little PO'd if I were him. But let's hear from Andre Pallante post-game about the situation, courtesy of Bally Sports Midwest.
When Oli comes out, I know you're happy to do whatever the manager says, but you want to keep going at that point,
Yeah, I'd love the opportunity to go, keep going out there and, keep pitching. But, that was their decision. And, just be ready to go next week.
That's a guy that does not want to say the wrong thing. I mean, he had to be pissed. Let's be honest. And as the cat asked that question, Palante is just stone-faced. Can't see that on an audio podcast, but he is just stone-faced, man. And so he gave the canned answer. He's got to be thinking, you're kidding me, man. I'm just trying to make my way here and prove myself, and those opportunities are not being afforded to me. I keep riding Palante, though. I hope he is pitching at Wrigley Field, and I hope he gets the spotlight on him for a nice game in a very different environment. And that might be something, too, where they almost throw him to the wolves because maybe nobody wants to have to pitch in Birmingham where you're on a small field or a small stadium, and the travel's going to be weird, and it's going to be kind of like just a one-off event, and it's going to be tricky. So you don't make one of your veterans do it anyway. That might be to their preference to have Palante have to do it. I don't know if guys would be looking forward to doing it. I like to think they would because it is a special thing. But I don't know. I hope Palante gets the ball and shoves in that one. I'm rooting for the guy because I just think they're kind of yanking his chain a little bit. And like I said, I understood the decision by Oli. There was a good rationale behind it. I came away from that still not agreeing with it, while also saying it didn't cost him the baseball game. This offense has to get going, man. We can have a day where we see the Cardinals offense do something, but that doesn't make up for like the multiple days that it doesn't get anything done. Or it scores 3 runs, and you're like, well, you won with that, so it's pretty good, right? No. You didn't score any runs in the first 7 innings yesterday. That's not great. It's not great. The Cardinals, I get it that they've got key contributors injured. Who doesn't, though? There are teams that have big names that are out due to injury, some of them for the season. The Cardinals are 22nd in OPS in baseball this year. You know, it's just what it is at this point. Even lower in runs scored. Now, granted, they've played fewer games than a lot of the teams ahead of them, but they've scored 267 runs. That's 27th in baseball behind the most directly the Rays and Blue Jays, who have played 1 and 2 more games than the Cardinals, scoring 4 more runs. The Mariners are 24th with 283 runs scored. The Cardinals have played 4 fewer games than the Mariners, but I don't know if the Cardinals are scoring 16 runs over those 4 games to tie them. And then the teams that are ahead of that have only played 1 more game than the Cardinals, so the Cardinals are not even within shouting distance of those. I mean, the Cardinals are about 25th in runs scored per game or so this year. 25th, 26th. It's not where you want it, and it's why they lost today. Not Oli Marmol, not Palante, not even Roycroft, and not even John King. Got to score runs to win games, and the Cardinals have gone on a little run before this game today, and this one kind of stilted the winning streak. What they have 3 in a row, but over those 3, you won 3-0 against the Cubbies, 4-3 over the Pirates, 4-2 over the Pirates, and then going back to the weekend, you had some games where you scored against the Rockies. But since that Rockies series ended, and in that series the Cardinals scored 5 runs or more in 3 of the 4 games. But since that series ended, you've gone 1 run, 4 runs, 4 runs, 3 runs, 1 run. So it's been a little lean. The 4 is much better than the 3. If that can kind of be the standard, then I think the Cardinals can be okay. They can keep treading water. But they've got to find bigger, crooked numbers in order to support this team, support the pitching staff, the bullpen, give the right guys the days off when they need it by winning big. Maybe that's what they can go to Miami and do later this week. But Cardinals fans, let me know your thoughts on the decision as it pertained to Andre Pallante and Oli Marmol there. Again, we heard from Palante a little bit, and I wouldn't have been happy, but he kind of kept it very, very buttoned up, which I understand. Your thoughts on Imanaga? Cardinals didn't sign him. He pitched pretty well on Saturday. And this offense in general, what's got to give for this Cardinal team? Look, they came into today in second place alone in the NL Central standings, and actually in a wild card spot as a result by virtue of that. And now they're back to a game under 500, hoping to get back to even against the Cubs, which if they can do it in the game on Sunday, which is the Roku game at 12:05, if the Cardinals can do that, I think they're probably above 500 going into Wrigley Field in Birmingham on Thursday, because you got to win this Miami Marlins series, right? They're 23-47. And the Cardinals still in second in the division because the Reds lost and the Cubs are too far behind to catch them. And the Pirates lost as well. So Cardinals are still the same as it ever was. The Nationals have been streaking recently, though. They're 7 out of their last 10 to pull within a half game of the Cardinals. Even the Mets now have won 4 in a row, and 8 of 10. They're only a half game behind the Pirates. So, yeah, let's welcome the Mets back into the fold, because what they have been able to quickly do puts them back into consideration. I was kind of counting them out, but they've gone on the run that they needed. So, yeah, the Cardinals still in a playoff spot as we speak after all that on Saturday, but what does that really mean if you're not able to even get above 500 at any point so far since, April 6th, I think is the last time? So those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comments below, and subscribe to the channel for Cardinals content all season long. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you guys so much for listening, as always, and we'll talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily. Peace.